Why letting go attracts everything you're chasing? Have you ever wanted something so badly that it consumed you? Maybe it was love. Maybe it was success. Or maybe it was just peace in a chaotic world. We all have that one thing or several that we chase. We chase it with our thoughts, our actions, our time, our energy. And yet, paradoxically, the more we chase it, the further away it seems to drift. Why does that happen? Why does something we desire so deeply slip from our grasp when we seem to be doing everything right? In this video, you're going to hear something that might challenge everything you've ever believed about ambition, desire, and effort. Because the truth is, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means something far more powerful. It means setting the stage for what you want to come to you effortlessly, naturally, and often unexpectedly. Let's begin with a thought experiment. Imagine you're holding water in your hand. You cup your hand lightly, and the water stays there, calm, undisturbed. But if you clench your hand, if you grip it tightly, the water seeps through your fingers and disappears. Your effort, your force, your desperation actually causes what you want to disappear. That's what desire does when it becomes attachment. That's what effort does when it becomes obsession. We believe that by holding on tighter, we'll be more secure. But in trying to control life, we often squeeze out its magic.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This isn't to say that ambition is wrong. Wanting something is not the problem. The problem is the emotional weight we tie to the outcome. The belief that if I don't get this, I'll be incomplete. That's when desire becomes suffering. It becomes a prison, and ironically, it becomes a wall that keeps us from the very thing we want. The ancient Buddhists knew this. They taught that attachment is the root of suffering, not because desire is evil, but because clinging creates fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And when we act out of fear, we repel the very abundance we crave. You've seen this dynamic play out in real life. Think about the person who's desperate for love. They try too hard. They text too often. They overthink every interaction. And what happens? People pull away. Not because they're mean, but because desperation feels heavy. It feels needy. It creates pressure. And nothing, no human connection, no opportunity thrives under pressure. Now think of the opposite. The person who is self-assured, relaxed, unattached to the outcome. They walk into a room and people are drawn to them not because they're trying hard, but because they're not. Their presence feels light. It feels freeing. It feels safe. Why? Because they've let go, not of the desire, but of the need for it. Letting go is not apathy. It's not resignation. It's surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the understanding that life is not a vending machine where you punch in a number and get exactly what you ordered. Life is more like a dance. You move, it moves. You create space, it fills it. You exhale, it inhales. And when you let go, you allow life to surprise you, to align you, to give you what you didn't even know you needed. I've experienced this again and again in relationships, in business, in my own personal growth. The more I cling to how things should be, the more I suffer. The more I loosen my grip, the more things flow. Sometimes I get exactly what I wanted. Sometimes I get something better, and sometimes I get a lesson. But it's always perfect. It always leads me to the next step. And that's the power of letting go. It's not about inaction, it's about clarity. It's about saying, this is what I want. But I don't need it to feel whole. I don't need it to define my worth. I trust that if it's meant for me, it will come. And if it doesn't, something better will. Let me ask you something. What are you holding onto so tightly right now that it's actually pushing the thing away? Is it a relationship? A dream? An image of who you think you're supposed to be? What would happen if you loosened your grip just a little? What would happen if you stopped chasing and started trusting? We live in a culture that glorifies the grind. That says if you're not hustling, you're falling behind. But there's a quiet revolution happening, or a shift from doing to being, from force to flow, from grasping to allowing. And those who embrace this shift are finding something extraordinary. Everything they were chasing starts chasing them. Because they've stopped radiating desperation and started radiating peace. And peace is magnetic. So here's the paradox. The more you want something, the more you must be willing to let it go. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to trust. Trust that life knows what it's doing. Trust that timing matters. Trust that you are already enough, even without the thing you're chasing. And from that place of wholeness, of peace, you become a magnet for everything you once thought was out of reach. The illusion of control and the freedom of surrender. We spend an extraordinary amount of our lives trying to control outcomes. We plan meticulously, we strategize, we calculate every move, believing that if we just do everything right, if we just follow the rules, check every box, or anticipate every variable, we can guarantee the result. But life has its own rules, its own rhythm, and its own mysterious intelligence. And the harder we try to impose our will on it, the more resistance we encounter. This is one of the most painful truths we eventually come to face. Control is an illusion. We are not the architects of every moment. We are participants in a much larger unfolding, and the moment we try to dominate that unfolding, we lose touch with the very nature of life itself. Let that sink in. How many times have you tried to force an outcome only to watch it collapse, despite your best efforts? How often has life humbled you, reminding you that no matter how much you plan, you can't control how others feel, what opportunities arise, or when the timing will be right? We like to believe we're in charge because it gives us a sense of safety. But that safety is fragile. It's like building a house on sand. Any wave of uncertainty can wash it away. Surrender, on the other hand, is building your house on the solid ground of trust. Not blind hope, but a deep, inner knowing that you don't need to micromanage reality to be okay. And this is where the freedom begins. Because when we let go of control, we also let go of anxiety. We let go of the tension in our chest, the constant background noise of worry, the mental gymnastics of what if. We stop trying to manipulate life into giving us what we think we need, and instead, we open ourselves to what life is trying to give us. And here's the beautiful twist. When we surrender, we often receive more than we ever imagined. Because we're no longer limited by our narrow vision of how things should be. We become open to how things could be something far greater, far deeper, far more aligned with who we truly are. Now, surrender doesn't mean inaction. It doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing, waiting for the universe to deliver your dreams like a package in the mail. It means you show up, you do your part, but you release the burden of needing a specific outcome. You act, but you don't attach. You care, but you don't cling. You dream, but you don't demand. Can you feel the difference? It's the difference between rowing upstream with all your might and finally letting go to allow the current to carry you not toward indifference, but toward alignment. Think of the most profound moments in your life, the moments that changed you, shaped you, broke you open. How many of them came exactly as you planned? How many arrived because you forced them into existence? Or did they come unexpectedly, in moments of surrender, in accidents, in setbacks, in letting go of what you thought you wanted? Sometimes, the greatest gifts come wrapped in chaos. Sometimes the plan falling apart is the plan. But we only see that when we stop trying to control the narrative and start trusting the author. So let me ask you this: what part of your life are you trying too hard to control right now? Where are you resisting the flow because you're afraid of what might happen if you let go? What would it feel like to surrender, not to give up, but to give in to something wiser than your fear? What if letting go wasn't the end of your journey, but the beginning of a more peaceful, more powerful one? We're taught that control equals strength. But the deepest strength lies in surrender, because surrender requires trust. And trust is not easy. It asks you to believe in what you cannot see. It asks you to leap without knowing where you'll land. But that leap, that's where transformation lives. That's where life meets you with open arms, not because you forced it to, but because you finally allowed it to. Chasing creates distance, stillness creates magnetism. There's a strange truth about the nature of pursuit, one that feels counterintuitive until you've lived it deeply. The more you chase something, the more it seems to run away from you. It's as if your very desire creates a gap between you and the thing you want. Think about it. When you're chasing something, what are you really saying energetically? You're saying, "I don't have it." You're affirming lack. You're radiating need. And whether we realize it or not, that inner state communicates far louder than our words or actions ever could. It creates tension, and that tension repels. It pushes the very thing we want further away, not because desire is wrong, but because the energy behind that desire is rooted in fear, in insufficiency, in a subtle sense of desperation. This applies to relationships, to dreams, to money, to status. When we chase love, we often attract partners who mirror our own insecurity. When we chase success, we may find ourselves burning out, overcompensating, or making decisions from fear instead of alignment. And when we finally pause, when we stop running, stop grasping, stop trying to force life to deliver, we often find that the things we were chasing start coming toward us. Not because we stopped caring, but because we shifted the energy. We moved from lack to presence. We stopped broadcasting, "I need this to be whole," and started radiating, "I'm whole already, and from this wholeness, I welcome what flows." Stillness is not passivity. It's a powerful state of magnetism. You think of a mountain. It doesn't chase the wind. It doesn't run after the clouds. And yet everything flows around it, touches it, is drawn to its presence. Stillness is rooted. It's grounded. It's confident. And it's deeply attractive, not in the superficial sense, but in the spiritual sense. There's something about a person who is no longer chasing that makes you want to be around them. They're not trying to prove anything. They're not trying to impress. They simply are. And in that being, they become a mirror for others to return to themselves. There's an old Zen saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But the deeper truth is, the teacher was always there. It's just that the student was too distracted, too hurried, too caught up in the chase to notice. Only in stillness does clarity arise. But only in stillness do we begin to see that what we were seeking was never really outside of us. It was always pointing us back to something inside. Something calm, something wise, something whole. So ask yourself this: are you chasing something right now? Not just externally, but internally. Are you running because you think what you want is far away, or because you're afraid of what stillness might reveal? Stillness isn't always comfortable, but it forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've tried to outrun. But in that confrontation, something incredible happens. You begin to dissolve the illusion of separation. You begin to see that the more you embody what you seek, the more it naturally finds its way to you. You don't attract what you chase. You attract what you are. And when you become still, when you become peace, love, abundance, presence, those things no longer feel distant. They feel inevitable, because they're no longer something you're trying to get. They're something you're allowing in. Wholeness is the ultimate magnet. You attract what you already are. At the heart of this entire journey lies one essential truth. We do not attract what we want, we attract what we are. This is not just a poetic idea, it's a fundamental law of how energy, psychology, and consciousness work. When you feel incomplete, you search outside yourself to fill the void. But anything you chase from a place of inner lack will never satisfy you, even if you catch it. But why? Because you're still carrying the same frequency of emptiness. You've changed the scenery, but not the state of being. And that's why letting go is not about losing, it's about remembering who you were before you believed you were lacking. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not having every detail of your life figured out. It's a state of inner congruence, a deep knowing that you are already enough, already worthy, already complete. When you embody that wholeness, your desires become expressions of your essence, not attempts to fix yourself. You no longer chase love because you lack it, you move with love because you are it. You don't hustle for validation because you're afraid of being unseen. You create because it's your nature to expand, to serve, to share. That shift in identity changes everything. Most people try to change their lives by changing their actions. They chase different goals, adopt new habits, switch careers, date new people. But they rarely change the self from which all those actions arise. They remain the same person, operating from the same wounds, the same insecurities, the same unconscious patterns, but wearing different costumes. True transformation happens not when you get something new, but when you become someone new, or rather, when you remember who you truly were before fear, trauma, and ego took the wheel. When you live from wholeness, you stop needing things to fill you. And ironically, that's when life pours into you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became compatible with it. You stopped pushing and you started aligning. You stopped trying to become someone and you remembered you already are. This is the quiet power of the people, the creators, the lovers, the leaders who seem to attract everything without force. They radiate wholeness, and the world responds in kind. So here is the question that will echo long after this video ends. What if everything you've been chasing was never meant to be caught, but to be remembered inside you? What if you stopped striving to gain and started allowing yourself to be? What if the path to everything you want begins not with more effort, but with more presence? Letting go doesn't mean you let life pass you by. It means you finally step into its flow. It means you stop grasping and start receiving. You stop fearing and start trusting. You stop seeking answers and start becoming the question itself. And in doing so, you become the magnet, not the chaser, the source, not the seeker. Because in the end, the ones who have everything are the ones who no longer need anything to be whole.